So welcome to another video. This week I am heading into the Peak District, staying in Coombs Valley, and will be exploring all that I can, having not been to the Peak District since I think I did a walk around Kinder Scout on my birthday, going back about 6 years ago perhaps. But first, so this trip to the peaks is pretty spontaneous. It was relatively unplanned, or at least not till the last minute. Normally, I head to my regular butcher farm shop, Forster's, in Moss Bank in St Helens, which is a pretty significant drive for me. It's around about a 90-minute round trip there and back, plus obviously the time it takes to get the shop in from the butcher's. However, I've been going there for about 12 years now, and I absolutely adore all that they stand for. I love the amount of effort that they put in. They're organic and grass-fed, so there is an absolute ton of work that goes into that. Not only the actual upbringing of the cows and the sheep that they have on their land, but also the administration side of things and the rules and the legislation behind the medication, the lifestyle of the livestock, the documentation of it all, the passports for each animal. Amazing. Something I'm hugely passionate about, and it means absolutely everything to me to get quality produce. So I go out of my way to go there, despite the significant journey, the time it takes. It's a huge commitment on my part, and Abby's, my partner, she helps, she goes there as well. And we've got an awesome relationship with the owners, the family, and the staff that work there. I also normally go to a farm in Cumberbatch for raw milk. However, again, this trip is spontaneous, very last minute, unplanned until the last minute. So as a result, Abby went to the farm shop 2 days ago to get stuff for the rest of the week. But in terms of me getting stuff for the weekend, 2 nights away, the Peak District from where I live, it's the complete opposite direction from the farm shop as well as the butcher's and the dairy farm. So, spontaneous trip to Morrison's. I very rarely go to Morrison's. However, it's very convenient in the sense that it's on the way to the motorway for every location that I intend on traveling to. And it's okay. Obviously, it's not the best quality. It's a supermarket at the end of the day. I would much rather be putting my hard-earned money into the pocket of a family-run business, a small business such as Forster's. Ultimately, I am a small business myself, so I know the impact that it has on the ability to put food on the table and pay the bills and so on for small businesses like that. So I would much rather shop local than supermarket chains. But it was a last-minute trip. Something I will elaborate on later on in this video are some of my beliefs around nutrition. And ultimately, whilst I, like everybody else, get it wrong from time to time, and I've had various journeys over my adult life from a nutritional perspective, be it working on different goals, competing in Olympic weightlifting for a while, dabbled in bodybuilding for a couple of years, then trying out strongman, but ultimately still having a huge passion and enthusiasm for all things endurance and outdoors. Generally speaking, my nutritional beliefs, the things that I've read, my academic experience and reading around the subject of nutrition, not just for optimal health and longevity, but also performance and feel good and clarity and focus and all of those important things that we take for granted on a daily basis. I try to practice what I preach, at least certainly do my best. For the most part, I associate the way in which I eat with my identity, just like I referred to with one of my videos on this channel only a couple of weeks ago. And the way I eat is an important part of my identity, because a lot of my goals, a lot with regard to who I want to be, is with regard to not just fitness and performance related goals, more so my huge drive for health span, lifespan, longevity, I think is probably a more appropriate word. Wanting to essentially get to the point where in 15, 20, 25, 30 years time, I'm still capable and able to do and enjoy the things that I want to do with ultimately my kids and my family without fitness, injury, and health being a limiting factor. That's who I am, it's who I want to be, and nutrition plays a massive role in that. So I will finish the journey to the Peak District, Coombs Valley, which is where I'm heading for. I will get camp set up, and I will talk to you guys a little bit more about nutrition, or my beliefs around nutrition, shortly. So I made a right meal of that. However, the drive-away awning is up. I'm sure I'll get lots of practice over the coming weeks and months. However, me and Abby have just invested in this Vango Keeler 5. Ultimately, because it's important to me that Abby and the kids enjoy being out in the van. It's something that I want to do as often as physically possible to explore, to get outdoors, ultimately so that when we're spending time together, it's not always in front of the TV, which it's not me, it's not who I am, it's not the sort of thing I like to do. I like to get in the outdoors, and having the van plus the awning gives us a bit of space. Me and Ollie, my eldest, tend to sleep in the pop top, which is great, and then Abby and the baby will sleep in the bottom. But if the baby's a little bit restless at night, at least having the awning out at night means that she can sort of escape and stand up, because whilst we can stand up in the van with the pop top up, if Ollie is asleep in the pop top, then you can't, because obviously the bed is flat and horizontal to the floor, so you can't stand up when someone's sleeping at the top. Anyway, it's done, it's up, it'll do. It's a little bit of an extreme setup given the fact that it's only me. I could have just stayed in the van alone like I normally do. However, because it's a new awning, I wanted to get some practice setting it up so that it was all efficient for when the four of us stay in it in future. And as proven, I was right. I need some practice putting it up. I'll get used to it. It's not a difficult task. It's just a case of doing things in the right order, which is not what I did. Anyway, I'm staying at Coombs Valley campsite. I've not stayed here before. Price was okay. Price was reasonable. It worked out around about £50 for the 2 nights with electric hookup, which is okay. It's a relatively small site, but this time of year there's not that many people. It's in early February, it's the beginning of February, so it's quite chilly. I am going to get the bed set up shortly. I've not got it done at the moment because my priority was giving you guys a little bit of a tour of my setup before it goes dark, because sunset has just happened. It's going to be dark in the next half an hour. So I'll now take you through my setup for the next couple of days, which of course I'll be faffing about with, but you can see now exactly what it looks like in terms of the way I'm sleeping and staying here over the next couple of days. So inside the drive-away Vango Keeler 5, I've placed my Outwell carpet out of the 4-man tent that we have. That's the table. I believe it's a Fiamma table that the Auto House have put into the van as part of the conversion. I bought the tripod legs as a separate purchase, just so that I could do exactly this, take the table out of the van so I wasn't having to carry and transport another table with me, because that one would have been limited to the van only. I've got a old camping chair I've had for a long time. I think I got that from Go Outdoors. I've got the Camper Diddy electric heater, which is really useful for this time of year, which goes straight into the extension lead that I brought with me, which goes into the 3-pin plug inside of the van. As you can see, I've not yet set up the bed, but I will do shortly. I'll probably cook first, so I've got plenty of space in the van. Now, one of the things that I need to do over the next couple of days, because it's a normal weekend for me, I need to get plenty of work done in terms of check-ins for online clients. What is really good about this campsite is that I've got really strong 4G signal, so it just means that I can hotspot it to my laptop and get plenty of work done this evening to kind of allow a bit of time to pass so that I have a bit more time to myself tomorrow to get a decent walk in. As I say, I'm going to be staying 2 nights, but the sooner I get all of my work done, the better. Now, the the way in which I work is I get people to book in a Zoom call with me at least once a week. That's typically as a little bit of a touch point in the middle of the week, just to check in with how people are getting on and have a conversation about a few of the things that they're working on themselves, be it their training, be it their nutrition, be it their routines around building a better state of mind, how they start the day, how going through bedtime routines, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of every week on a Friday and Saturday, I also ask people to do a check-in for me, and that check-in allows them to give me some information and feedback about how they're feeling, what their digestive habits have been like, how they're sleeping, what their nutrition habits and how their plan is going, and so on and so forth. So I will be getting into the awning shortly and cracking open my laptop in order to get through everybody's check-ins, in order to give me a chance to have a bit of a day off so I can get out in the hills tomorrow. Another thing that I've done as part of the setup is I've invested in the Outdoor Revolution camper van draft excluder that you can see inflated underneath the van. Now, it's designed for short wheelbase vans, and my Spartan GTX is a long wheelbase. However, it fits perfectly within the floor space that I have within the tunnel. And obviously the purpose of that is to prevent any draft or wind from getting underneath the van and taking away the heat from inside the awning. Dinner done. As you saw, massive whopping ribeye steak was on the menu for tonight, along with some Gruyere cheese. I went to Gruyere in Switzerland and had a Gruyere fondue with potatoes, which was awesome, as you can expect. So I always get Gruyere, I do like it. I was actually looking for Roquefort, so a client of mine told me the other day that an awesome combination that they like is pears with Roquefort. However, unfortunately, I couldn't find any Roquefort in Morrison's, so Gruyere it was. And I had strawberries and yogurt for dessert. A lot of people, when they start working with me, become quite surprised at the amount of red meat that I prescribe and advise them to consume. And there's so many reasons for it. I'm a huge advocate of consuming red meat, particularly from beef and lamb. And there's a whole host of reasons as to why, but I suppose to give you guys a few, those of you who are new to the channel perhaps and haven't necessarily heard me talk about this before, is that cows and sheep, amongst a couple of others, but in the UK most common, are ruminant animals. They have multiple stomachs. They digest the food that they consume so differently to monogastric or single stomach animals such as chicken, turkey, and pigs. A lot of people, when they go on a bit of a health kick, or they try and eat better in order to get in better shape and improve energy levels and so on and so forth, start consuming things like chicken and turkey in order to reduce overall calories but increase their protein intake. And whilst I'm not entirely against the consumption of things like chicken and pork and turkey, because ultimately one of the things that I think most people would benefit from is eating more animal-based proteins from meat and eggs and fish and so on and so forth, because fundamentally consuming more protein is massively important for a number of reasons. Won't go into it, don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but ultimately every cell in our body is made up of protein and fat, and we're replacing cells, thousands if not millions of cells on a daily and a weekly basis, and ultimately what we're replacing them with, the building blocks if you like, is what we largely consume from our diet. So we need a massive amount of protein, or a lot more than what the average person consumes, in order to not only do that but also support long-term health, in order to minimize muscle loss. I mean, muscle is an organ in itself. It's massively underrated. People just think it's to do with aesthetics I still hear today so many people talk about how they want to train and exercise, but they don't want to get too bulky. It doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen. Consuming more protein is not going to exponentially increase your rate of muscle growth and so on. Protein is for far much more than that. So yeah, I'm not going to sort of sit here and say you should not eat chicken and turkey and pork, because ultimately that's probably going to be a significant improvement in your diet. However, I have this good, better and best list, and in the best list for me is things like beef and lamb and all cuts of, including offal, liver, heart, etc. Because as ruminant animals, the way in which they digest the food that they consume is so much more different. So with monogastric animals, they are what they eat, and therefore we are what they eat, whereas it's not quite the same with ruminant animals. And to add to that, there is no bird feed, there is no pig feed on the planet that doesn't contain things like corn and or soy, which in the grand scheme of things, on top of other things that creep into our diet, increase the consumption of omega-6 fatty acids, polyunsaturated fatty acids, in particular one known as linoleic acid, which is hugely problematic for optimal health. It's responsible for so many things in all aspects of the body, things that are occurring in our brain, our appetite, risk of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, increased risk of obesity, so many things. So doing that does help contribute to you reducing your intake of linoleic acid, and things like corn and soy, whether they're consumed directly or indirectly, are never going to be good. Don't get me wrong, we're talking about marginal gains to an extent, because I said I'm not telling people not to consume chicken and pork and turkey, but it accumulates, and it accumulates very quickly, particularly with regard to how easy it is to pick up convenient processed items from the likes of supermarkets and so on. To add to the fact that, of course, beef and lamb are ruminant animals, and I've just mentioned that, they spend a massive amount of their time consuming grass. I don't know exactly what the percentage is. Where they've come from will vary. How much grass they've consumed, what the quality of that grass is like, whether the land is organic or not. Of course, as I said before, I get my 95% of my beef and lamb from forsters who are grass-fed and organic. And again, the work that goes into that is absolutely sensational. And I implore you to try and find somebody local to you that is the same, and maybe have a conversation with them and just find out what goes into it, because it's astonishing. Really, really is. But even if you're not consuming completely grass-fed beef or lamb, a significant percentage of that animal's diet, life, is going to have been spent consuming grass and grazing on the land. Because that's what they do. They largely live outside. And yes, there's going to be times when they're maybe fattened up, and yes, they're going to have some form of medication that potentially is still within their bloodstream or body, or traces of it when the animal is then slaughtered and sent to the butcher and so on and so forth, in comparison to the likes of a grass-fed organic, where things like that are much stricter and monitored. But it's so much more nutrient dense. This is a really important thing to understand, is that not only can you survive off red meat alone, you can thrive off it. The nutrients are so much more bioavailable. It's not a coincidence that if you consume the right amount of protein from red meat, you also get the right amount of creatine that you need. And creatine goes way beyond just strength training and energy for training and vigorous exercise. Creatine is required for much, much more than that, and again, optimal health. But red meat contains so many other things that we need: zinc, selenium, choline, iron, B vitamins, copper, of course, protein, essential nutrients that come along with the good fats that are found with it, vitamin A, vitamin D, E, K, things that we just can't get from consuming what some people think is a typical healthy diet with lots of colour, and eating leaner cuts of meat, white fish, and so on and so forth. So if there's anything you can take from this, I do implore you to consume more red meat, not only red meat alone, but sourcing it from somewhere that's of much better quality, where of course the welfare of the animals is considered, as well as the quality of the land that they're grazing off, and so on. And of course, you see, I'm sat here drinking an alcohol-free beer. I don't aspire to eat perfectly all of the time, because I enjoy the experience that comes with having a drink, particularly whilst out camping. Unfortunately, the weather's not as good as it could have been. One of my favourite things to do is to sit out with a glass of wine or a glass of whiskey and look at the stars and have a fire. However, as part of my identity that I've mentioned a couple of times, I don't want to associate myself with drinking alcohol, because I understand the negative impact that it can have on my sleep and how I feel, how I think, act and behave, not just the next day, but maybe for a few days after that. The impact it's going to have on my appetite, my ability to avoid things that I might crave and make decisions that ultimately I may, regret is too strong of a word, but ultimately make decisions that aren't aligned with my goals, my targets, how I want to feel, how I want to perform, be it physically and or psychologically. So, my way of kind of dealing with that, my plan B, if you like, rather than kind of having alcohol, is to have just the odd, especially, I don't drink these through the week at all, because I am conscious there's still, a reasonable amount of calories in these, depending on how many you consume. There's still wheat, there's still brewer's yeast, there's still things in there that are going to affect my gut health, the way in which I feel, symptoms of things like bloating and stomach distension. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, having one or two at the weekend isn't going to have any significant impact in the grand scheme of things, provided that I'm not over-consuming elsewhere. But I know that I can have one of these, enjoy it, and it's not going to negatively impact my sleep. Because when I am in the outdoors, when I'm in the van, when I'm in a tent, when I'm wild camping in the mountains, because I tend to not have any distractions, because there's no phone signal, because I'm not necessarily up till all hours watching TV or have distraction, because I feel like I'm somewhere that I want to be. I'm a lot more relaxed, at peace with things, and also the fact that we tend to go to bed as the sun starts to set. It's early to bed and early rise, which is much better for our circadian rhythm with the impact of light, something I'll talk about in another video, I'm sure. I always tend to get a better night's sleep, so I don't want to come somewhere like this and spoil that and miss out on having quality sleep and feeling great the next day, just for the sake of having a glass of wine or a couple of alcoholic beers. Anyway, I'm gonna spend the next hour getting some more of my clients' check-ins done. I'm going to make sure that they're all organised and structured and scheduled for the week ahead. I've got a couple of Zoom calls first thing in the morning, which is great because this campsite has got really good signal, so I can take those Zoom calls whilst I'm here. I might get a little bit of editing done for a video that's going to be published on YouTube soon. And then I'm going to get my head down and get an early night with the intention of getting up, getting the Zoom calls out of the way, making sure that work's boxed off, and then I'll get out in the hills. So I will take you guys with me. I will put that video up a different time on YouTube. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I hope you took something from it from a nutritional aspect within this video. If you like the mixed bag of content with regard to the lifestyle side of things and camping and showing you what I do when I get out in the hills and so on and so forth, but also the additional educational stuff with regard to training, nutrition, psychology, mindset, clarity, goal setting, etc, 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 then please do like this video. It helps me a ton. The more likes this video gets, the more people get to see it, which is ultimately my goal. My goal in 2023 is to reach out to as many guys as possible with a view to trying to help them and help them for free, because ultimately that person may remember the impact that I've had on them. It's the reason why I do regular 5-day challenges, 5-day courses completely for free, because ultimately that person may then refer me on to a friend, a brother, a father, a son, an acquaintance, a work colleague, whoever, and they at some point might want to work with me in the future. So you liking this video helps with that enormously. And if you want to receive a notification for the next time a video uploads and published, then please do subscribe to the channel and also hit the notification bell in order to be notified of the next release. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you very soon.